welcome back. What we're going to show in this video is how to use the StrapiJS CMS and utilize the GraphQL API. We already showed you everything working with the REST API, but wanted to show you the flexibility that's provided using the Graph API. This is a React video. You guys know I usually do a lot of Vue.js stuff, so I'll probably follow up with some Vue stuff here. But until then, check out my course on Udemy. It's running right now. It's available. I have a book available also. Links will be in the bio, and make sure you like and subscribe, and let me know what kind of content you like. All right, let's do the first step, which is uploading the plugin or getting the plugin installed on the StrapiJS CMS. So first, let's fire up our server, and let's switch over and kind of launch this thing. Get the URL properly. Oh, where is my browser? Okay, now let's log in with the credentials, and then you can go down and check out the not the marketplace, the plugins. You can see the plugin is not installed yet. Here it is. Let's download this thing. Kind of let's save some time and just transition over to after it's downloaded. So here you can see after it's downloaded, the server needs to restart to get everything going. And then now let's switch back to my server and kind of refresh this. And you can see the GraphQL plugin is running. So it's got this cool playground. I'm certain you guys have seen it before. We've done GraphQL. It allows us to kind of play with queries and mutations. And what we're going to do here is we're going to just validate that the API is working by creating a query to get an individual post first. It's also awesome because it's got the documentation that's provided, so you don't got to fumble around to try to figure out how to get these queries working. And so this first query, I'm going to just try to get an image post back, hence the name ImagePost. Okay, let's try to run. It looks like, yes, I'm missing the ID. I got to tell it what is the ID of the post I want to get back. So let's add that ID. I know there's one post. So there you go. And you can see how awesome that is. Very little work. You just have to upload the plugin and you're up and running. Let's add the additional fields we want to get back. We want to get back a title. We want a body. And then we're also going to need our image. But yeah, once again, I'm missing a little more information, but thankfully the error code is pretty clear. So let's add the ID of the image, and let's add something else just to kind of show you that we really are getting real images back. Let's run it again, and as you can see, we're getting the different formats that were saved. We have a thumbnail, we have a large, we got a medium, so it's pretty cool how it also generates different sizes. But for the purpose of what we're doing in our app, we really need to get the ID, the name, the URL, and a bunch of stuff. So let's try that. And if you scroll through, you can see we're getting what we need. So let's try writing the real query that we need, and that's the query that gives us all the posts back. This is the primary query that's used when the application first launches, and on that original page where we list all the image posts that are stored. As you can see here, there's no need to pass an ID parameter. We're just going to use the query that was created for us called ImagePost, which is providing the documentation. As you can see right now, all we really need to do is just tell it what fields we need. And so we're going to add the fields that we know that we need for that first home page query, which is the ID, body, title. And then, of course, we need the image on the bottom. And we need the ID, the name, and the URL, really is what we need. But just to kind of show you everything's working, you can see we're getting all the data back that we need. So now let's transition over to the source code and start to modify the REST API code to actually the Strapi setup, and we've got everything working with GraphQL. Let's try to integrate GraphQL into our actual application. What I've done here is we are in the version of the application where we're just using the REST API to make the calls to load everything up. And what we're going to do is we're just going to refactor this code using the REST API and fetch to start to use GraphQL. So let's first start by importing the libraries that we need to get GraphQL up and running. And I'm going to kind of do these one at a time. So first, we're going to install this library from Apollo that's going to allow us to upload images. From my testing, I noticed that we're getting some TypeScript errors along with this. So from the warning, it told me that I needed to install these types. So we're going to install these types. And then the last part here is let's install the ApolloClient. So let's get this thing all loaded up. And then next is to install the actual ApolloClient. Now that we have the clients all set up and everything, it's time to start integrating them. And so we're going to we're going to start at the top, and what we need to do is we need to get the client set up, and we're going to go all the way over here into index.tx, I always get this messed up, TSX, and we're going to start with importing the libraries. Once again, I'm just doing some copying here to kind of minimize you guys sitting around and watching me type, and then, okay, so now we have the libraries that we need in here, and so first thing we need to do is create our client. So we'll say const client equals new ApolloClient. Clearly that's going to need some parameters and some options. So here's where we're going to use that library create upload link. So we're going to say link, and then that link is going to be the results of this create upload link. And then inside of here, we're going to pass it our URI, is that? Your creatable link, URI. And then there we're going to put our URL in. And I think what's going on, create upload link is a function. A function which takes parameters. What's going on? So client create upload link. Then create upload link takes a create upload link takes a URI, and we need to specify the URI. And here in our URI, we're using the same backend server, HTTP / localhost 1337. And then you need to make sure you add to this GraphQL API, and that should be that. And then we need to end, boom, like that. And all right, now let's see why it's just not happy. That goes there. That goes there. That goes there. Okay, what's going on? Apollo link is not assignable. Oh, let me make sure. Property cache, missing type of Apollo link. Oh, I'm still missing one last thing. I need to put my cache in here. CACHE. That's what it's complaining about. So my cache, we're going to use the in-memory cache. So new IM, that's what this guy is up here. And in-memory cache. See, you guys, you know now why I cut and paste, because my typing is not exactly the best. Okay, so now we have our client set up. And after we have our client set up, we need to actually use it. And so we're going to wrap this whole app with the provider. So it's Apollo AP OLLO provider. It needs a client, and then we're going to give it our client that we created. Close it, and then wrap. And wrap our app with this guy. Format, and so, all right, we're good to go. We have our client. Okay, and so now our client is set up, and now with the provider, that'll give us access to our client inside of our pages. So the next step is go inside of Home. Currently in Home, we're doing this async thing inside of IonView.enter. We're going to comment all this out, and we're going to query this data a little bit differently. So let's start to make some room for some GraphQL stuff. Okay. When you're working with the hooks, because we're going to use the hooks from the ApolloClient, and there's two things that we need to import with that. We need the useQuery hook, and we need GQL to be able to process our queries that we're going to embed directly in here. Now, all of these queries I've kind of already tested in the, I think, as you saw in the last, you saw in the last video how you have that GraphQL playground. And so what I did was I tested all my queries in the GraphQL playground before I moved them all over to here. So our first query that we're going to use, well, let's get rid of, I don't think we need this set ImagePost anymore, so let's get rid of that. Let's clear out useState up here. And we have our first query. So ImagePost query is what we're going to use to query all of the all of the ImagePosts back from our database. And so we're not really going deep on GraphQL, but just to let you know, this is the query, this is the name of the query. It's going to return an object called ImagePost, and for each one of the ImagePosts, we're going to get all these fields back. We need these fields to render our home page. Okay, so that's our query. The next thing that you need after your query is you have to actually use it, and so that's where useQuery comes in. And so let's come down here, and let's create our hook, const. So out of our hook, we need a couple of things. Let's get that use query, and the first thing the query needs is the name of the query to execute, and we want it to execute this ImagePost query. So let's put that ImagePost query in there, and then what it needs to do is what we want out of our ImagePost query is loading information. I think that's all we're really gonna need right now. I don't think we want anything. Well, let's just get all the data. Let's get everything back from it, and then we'll back out of it. So we need loading, we need data, which is the results of the query, and then we need error, which will let us know if any errors happened. So that's really all you need to do a use query inside of React using the hooks, right? So this guy should run and execute a query for us and give us some results. And let's see how we're going to use those results. Well, the first thing we'll do before we use the results is we will add a nice little ion loading in here, and is open, and that will be set. We'll use our loading, which got returned from us, and then our message will be, let's keep it simple, ding loading. Let's give it 3 dots, and then let's close this out. So when our query is set loading to true, it will render this little loading dialog box here on the screen. Okay, and so now the next thing is this image post. Well, first of all, if we're not loading, then we want to try to render image post. Okay. Now the next thing is, how do we actually get the image post out? So what happens is that when you load this component, it will run this thing. And let's see, can I put this? I don't know if I'm going to be able to put this inside of here. useQuery cannot be installed at React callback, so I cannot put that inside of there. So let's take this out of here for now and just sit it up here. We'll comment out this whole use ion view to enter, because I think that there's a way we can refactor this so that I don't need to use that at all. And what we'll do now is let's go down into here. We need to get our image post, and our image posts are inside of our data object. So what we're going to do is we are going to, so now we have data, and let's go down. Let's say data.ImagePost. Because when you execute this query, this is the object that will be inside of data. Okay, so everything looks good. Let's give it a run. All right, so we're getting our data back. So we're executing our query, which is exactly what we wanted to accomplish. So just quickly to kind of go over the process that we used here. We loaded in our client, then we created our query, then we used our query, our use query, and then from that we got our loading and we got our data. We're not tracking error here because what we can do is, where's my use? Actually, we should use error. Let's use error. Okay, so to simulate an error, we're going to kind of change our image post here and add a bad value. All right, so right now we're just kind of stuck in this loading state. But what we're going to do is we're going to come down here, and inside of here, if there's an error, we're going to say, if there's an error, then write out what the error is. And then the other thing is we only want this thing to be loading. If there's loading and there's no error, then show a message. So what should happen as soon as I kick an error, this should change and my loading window should go away, and I should see my error message across the top of the page. So let's try this again. See? And so there we get it. We got an error message from that. Let's put some ion padding. Last name ion. Sorry. Okay, so now we get our error message around there, and then let's go and clean this up so there's no error. Run this again. All right, okay, there we go. So if there's loading and there's no error, then we get exactly what we want. Now let's move on to adding an item. So let's go over to add item. We are going to follow a similar pattern. The first thing we know is that we're not going to upload our files using the REST API. And we're not going to save our image post using the REST API. So we can just comment those two out. After we get everything working, we'll circle back around. And actually, let's just delete it to be clear. Let's just delete it to get out of the way. So let's delete that, and then delete that. And we know the process, right? We want to upload the file, and then we want to get the ID from the file and attach it and to create our documents. So we don't need the URL either, because we're going to use the hooks again. And so let's get everything started. Let's go back to home and copy over let's remove this unmuted enter. Let's copy the library that we need. So let's go over to AddItem. Except this time we're going to use something called useMutation. Okay. Also, I'm making a big assumption you guys have a basic understanding of GraphQL. I'll include some links below to give you a basic idea of how GraphQL works. All right, and so then of course we need the mutation that's associated with that. And so what we're going to use is how do we want to do this? Let's put our mutations on the outside here. All right, so we're going to have a mutation called upload mutation. This mutation just basically requires a file, and then it will upload the file, and then it will return the name of the file and the ID of the file. Because remember, we need the ID to associate with our image post. So we've created our query. We've created a mutation here with our GQL, and then the next thing we need is to actually call the mutation, right? And so similar to what we did last time, we will set up our mutation using the hook, right? So let's put them all the way at the top. Okay, so we have our mutation, and then we have our hook useMutation, and then we have the query that we're using. This is the name of the function that you're going to call to execute the mutation. And then same way how we had the loading and the last one, we're going to use loading upload, so we can be very specific. Because remember here we need to do two things. We need to do the upload the file, and then we need to actually save the post. And so we want to have two different parameters to keep track of the loading for us. All right, so the next thing is like, how do I use this mutation? So if you notice this mutation has some parameters, this file parameter, and so there's a way when you call the mutation to pass the parameter in. So what we're going to say is, remember here on the save the image post, the first part is the upload the file. So what we're going to say is upload, what did I call my mutation? Add image GraphQL. So let's go down here and say add image GraphQL, and then it requires parameters. And so the parameter that we are going to pass, the parameters are basically called variables with GraphQL. So we're going to say variables, and the only variable that it needs is the file variable. So we're just going to give it the file. Okay. Actually, I don't need that there. I don't need that there. And if you're wondering, let's say format. This file is coming from this set file, which was assigned down here when you click the file button. Let's go to UI. So when I select the file here, it gets assigned to the file property, and that's what I'm uploading. A bunch of this is covered also in the first video, so I'm assuming you're going to click back to the first video if this stuff isn't clear. But what's happening is that in this form, well, let me just quickly go through it. I'm capturing my title here, I'm capturing my body here, and then I capture a file using the input load, the input type file, so I can select the file. And then I display the screen name, but I store the actual file information here in this file object. That is what is getting passed here as a variable to my add image GraphQL. So we're going to upload the file, and from the uploaded file, we need to get some data back from this, because remember, we need to use the data for the image post. And so the data we're going to get back here, let's say const, and then let's dereference this to get some data out of here. And so what's going to come out of this this add image GQL mutation is similar to what we saw with the query. You're going to get a data object, and on that data object that comes back, image data is basically what we want to call the data object that comes back. So if let's just do this. Let's say const, and we'll say console log image data. What's this doing? Data does not exist on type promise. Oh, sorry, I need to do an await, because this is asynchronous. So we're going to attempt to upload the file. When it comes back, we're going to have this data object, which we're renaming to image data, and then image data should include all of the fields that we need for the next step, and those fields will be the name and the ID. So let's just test uploading an image so we can see what happens. So let's open up my DevTools. Let me switch the layout of this. It'll be easier to see. Actually, let me just expand this all the way out so we can see it. Move this. Let's get our console open. Let's zoom in on our console a bit. Okay, let's try and upload this file. Hopefully this works, fingers crossed. So it uploaded the file, and you can see here's the name and here's the ID. So the file got uploaded into our system. Close this out, And let's go back to our code. So we saw the image get uploaded. So now the next step is to take this image data and do a mutation to use, let's go back to my add screen, to get the title and the body. So we're going to do the same process. We'll create we'll create another query. Once again, these queries I created all in the playground earlier. So I'll just cut and paste this query in for us. This is a mutation. I keep saying query. This is a mutation that we're using to actually create the image post. You can see the what they're calling variables for the query. There's the title, there's the body, and there's the image, which is an ID. And so I'm going to pass in a title, a body, and an image, and it's going to give me back everything. It's going to give me back an ID, a title, a body, and then it's going to give me back the whole image object and the time it was created. Okay? So, and then we're going to use this similar pattern with the useMutation, where we're going to have a name for a query, we're going to keep track of the loading status, then we're going to call useMutation and pass in the mutation query. So to make sure I get it all right, let's just drop this in here. So remember, see, this is the loading indicator for when you're uploading the image. That's the add image, and this is the loading indicator for when you're actually uploading the post. I pass in the mutation, and now let's go down and use this after the first step. So remember, first step, 1, upload the file, 2, save image post with all of that. And so the same way we did this here, let's actually just copy this. All right, so except for image data, I believe this is going to be image post data is what we want to call this here. Now what we'll call this here is just post data, and then the variables that need to get passed. Remember, we said we need to pass a title, we need to pass a body, and then we need to pass an image. And remember, the image ID comes from the image data. So we're going to say image data dot upload dot ID. And that should give us the ID from this image that we just uploaded. So now I'm passing the title, the body, and the image. And if we go back and look at this query, the query needs title, body, image. And now let's see if we can clean up these errors. Oh, we need to actually call the right query. So let's call the right mutation. So for this mutation, this is what it is. Post data is the data that we get back. Let's just console log that so we can see that we successfully posted it. So we'll put that down here. Add image, bang, bang, dumped, bang. All right. Let's take this for a spin and see if we can add a new image. Let's go back here. All right, you can see these are our current images. Our current image post. Now let's add a new one. New image post. And then copy new image post body. Hope this works. Let's select our file. Select the square screenshot. And then now let's upload it. So it uploaded. Oh, this we'll fix this next, but let's reload this. Reload it, and here's this one, the new image post body. Hope this works. So we just uploaded it. Now, what's happening is that my data is getting loaded, but I took out the onView did enter, so what's happening is my hook isn't being called again. So we need to find a creative way to get our hook to be called again, because you can't just put a hook inside of another hook, and onView did enter is another hook. So how are we going to solve this problem? To address the issue, what we're going to do is we're going to switch this from a use query to a use lazy query. And what use lazy query does, it will keep this from being called immediately. So if we take our use lazy query, we bring it down here, and then what it does is it gives us a function to call instead of just happening automatically. So what we'll do is we'll call load image ImagePost, and that's going to be the name of the function that we're going to call. And then now what we're going to do is we're going to bring back our our use view did enter. And then what we'll do is we'll call load image posts from inside of here. I believe Yeah, and so that's what we'll do. So let's see what we get. And so we get our data loaded the first time, which is what we wanted to see happen. So our data gets loaded. And then now the check is, if I go over to add, using use lazy query, please work with lazy query. Let's add another image. This is a bright screen image. Let's add that because we'll recognize that. And now let's save image post. Uploaded. It took us back. I am view did enter. Why didn't it call and view did enter? So we're going to try changing the fetch policy. I think that might be why we're not getting our data. So let's try that. I'm in something new now because I've never run into this problem before. So let me see if this will address our issue. So we've loaded our data. Here's the new guy. Let's add the new guy too. New guy 2, body. So that's what it was. So we needed to basically tell the query to hit the network because we don't have it in the cache. So that's why it wasn't updating properly. Is there a way to do? Let's see. Let's try this other setting called cache and network. The network only. Let's do cache and network. All right. And let's take our debug statement out of here to kind of get this moving. And so let's do a hard reload. So we get all the data. Let's do new guy 3. Let's add new guy 3 body file. Image isn't that important now. Let's save image post. Loaded it. New guy 3 got loaded. So it's reloading the data based on a change because we're calling a query every time the view did load to make sure that we get the right data. There's another way that you can update your cache, which is in a previous video that I posted along with a bunch of source code. And here's a previous React GraphQL blog post that I had with source code. And what I do here is when you do your mutation, after the mutation's done, you can call this update function. And what the update function does is it will take the cache, it will get the results of the mutation you just did, you query the cache, and then you update the cache directly with the information that you got back. And what that will do is when GraphQL comes back to this page, the data will already have been modified because it's using the data from the cache. And so there's no need to call load image posts again. Check out that. If you have some questions about it, let me know, and maybe I'll update the post and show you how we can solve that problem here inside of add image. So basically what you want to do is on the end of this, where's my add image? On the end of this mutation for upload image post mutation, you'd add the update function and it would update the cache for you. Do I want to put that in? Well, actually, I didn't put my loadings in. So let's add my loading indicators on the page first. So let's go down here. Ion loading is, let's close that out. Let's get our import. And then we say is open. And remember, we have 2 loading statements. So we'll just say saving image post. 1, 2, 3. Close that out. And this is our message. And then is open. It should be loading image post or loading upload. No, so now that that's in, we can close everything out. Let's do one last upload, see if we can get our dialog. So we're going to add an image, something big. Last test. See if we can get a file. What do I got? Anything big here? Well, it's not that big. It's a screenshot. Let's see if that causes a little bit. See if we can get our loading. See, we get a little bit of it, and then it reloads. All right. So we're going to wrap it here. This is just to show you how to use GraphQL with the strapi API. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please make sure you like and subscribe. If you're into Vue.js, I have a bunch of Vue.js content. I also have a Vue.js book out, and I have a Vue.js course on Udemy and on Gumroad. Thanks for hanging in there, and I will talk to you later. Bye.